February 24th. We'll start with Pledge Allegiance and a moment of silence. Pledge Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
No.
All right, moving on, board minutes from the meeting on February 10th, 2026.
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second.
A motion for approval and second. Any questions? All those in favor, right hand. All right, moving on to superintendent's report.
All right, just quickly here, I want to give updates. Had a couple of legislative sessions just to meet with our legislators and talk about updates on bills and things. And so went up to Indy I went down to Indy for a legislative breakfast. And just to give some updates on that. One, we talked about the tag, legislative action for that moving into next year. So it's not going to change for next year. But hopefully after next year, they may do some changes with that. I did go ahead and link, you should have it in your packet now, the memo that I had sent to Representative Lehman and Senator Holman, just recommending some changes, and I just appreciate that. So I know you had said something, Chad, the last meeting about people saying that boards were a part of the other processes or whatever, but I haven't heard that from any of the other superintendents we were talking about. The only reason I point that out, that in our discussions, like, I do want to give credit to our team of people that put things together, because I do think we did it different here. We took something I think everyone was pretty frustrated with in the tag process, and I think Norwell made it as good as we could make it, right? And so I do want to give credit to our people that did that, because as I talked to the superintendents again around the table, I asked them, did anybody do some of the stuff that we did, like apply as a team and use the board to make the final decisions on it, and none of them had. And so I think I like what we did with it. I wish there was going to be changes for this next year, but we'll try to tweak what we did the best we can. And then also we talked a little bit about Senate Bill, or Senate Enrolled Act 1, and I don't see any changes really coming here until maybe the local income tax in 2028, kicking that down the road for 2029. But it was interesting when I was talking with Senator Holman, he talked about eventually, and he said 2031, I wish it wasn't that late, but getting to a rate-based system, which means that you would be based on your overall tax rate doesn't increase, and that's kind of what you guide, which is ironic because that's how we've been doing it for the last 6 years. But in our conversation, I did say to Senator Holman that I appreciate what their task at hand for them, because we're so different across the state, and so you're trying to make decisions, you know, that would be equal to everybody across the state, and the districts are always so different. But I think with TAG and with that's also kind of the point. Trying to do a one-size-fits-all for everybody in legislative action just doesn't work very well. So hopefully some of those changes will come about here over the next few years. The only other thing I wanted to point out, I thought when I looked at it today, so Senate Bill 78 on the cell phone, that did pass, right? And so we were going to talk about it, I think probably 2 or 3 meetings ago. But one of the things that came out, so you have, where it's at right now is we'll have a mandate, 2 possible policies that the board will need to do. And one is just to say blanketly, students are not allowed to bring cell phones or personal devices to school. So that's one option. The second option is that we just have to have a policy on how they're going to store those devices if they bring them to school. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a pouch. It could be they just have to have them stored in their locker, which I'm going to tell you right now, that's what I would like to do. It's what we're doing now, and it's working. But the idea would be that it would have to be powered down in your locker and not turned on, the whole time. But personally, I don't want to get into the business that we have pouches that they come and put them in. You're opening a whole nother issue with kids that you're going to need to deal with. I wish they'd have left it alone, because the way it's working right now is fine. But even with this, having the option of leaving it in the locker, I think is going to be fine. You guys have any questions on that?
And I believe we can do the locker because they removed secure from the language,
Right,
correct?
they did.
And that's where we would have run into a unfunded mandate for the bags.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, I think this was in the Fifth Amendment or something like that, that this changed into, so.
And I think that's my understanding where ISBA was a little more open to the idea when they took the word secure out.
Correct.
For schools.
Yeah, yeah, as long as we have that flexibility, I think we can make it work.
This will go into effect next school year?
Correct. I mean, if it, yeah, I mean, it's at least passed, so it has to be signed in, but yeah. Okay, trying to think if there's anything else. There was a bill on, which I thought was just interesting, forcing schools to allow ABA therapists to come into the school system. We've always done that, so we've always been open and allowed ABA therapists to come in, so that was something that wouldn't have affected us at all, but I'm not sure, I don't think that got called in the Senate, so. Anyway, that's all I have on that. Any other things people want to talk about with legislative action? Okay. And then parent coffee chats, did not have a great turnout for the Ossian. Had we met before since the Lancaster one?
Yeah.
Okay, so we did. So not a great turnout for the Lancaster parents, but the conversation was really good. So I appreciate, even if we have two parents show up, especially if it's parents that I haven't met before, it's been enjoyable just to talk with our parents. But I will say across the board with our elementary parents for our kindergarten and first grade are just almost begging us, please stop with the synchronous learning in kindergarten and first grade for sure, and pretty strong feelings about not having one-to-one devices at those two grade levels. So I think we may have some parents here, we can talk about that during the town hall as well maybe, but that's come out pretty strong with the parents. Teachers, for the most part, supported that too. We did have more of a discussion at Austin with the kindergarten parents, or kindergarten teachers about it, but pretty unanimous with the teachers too, that we don't have to be one-to-one at the kindergarten, first grade level. So we have some few more, I think, reaching out to people and getting some more feedback before we make a final decision, but that's generally where we're heading towards. And then the last thing in superintendent's report, I just wanted to point out for our town hall tonight, of course, we can talk about a lot of different topics, but really wanted to talk about what we're doing with homeschool, partnering with families, and what the enrollment and extracurricular participation is. And so around that conversation, what I'd like to do, so people that are in the audience are going to stay for the town hall, we'll give you handouts for this as well. But these three questions are what we really want to focus the start of our conversation about, because like we said at the last board meeting, we can all have opinions on different things. But I think coming down to some core questions or essential questions is really how we need to phrase the conversation. So, so things to be thinking about leading into that town hall. What is the role of tax-supported public school programming within the community? What are the community's expectations regarding in-product results from public school programming? And then when we think of all the programs that we offer, academic, co-curricular, extracurricular, if you think of those as separate programming components, do each of them have individual benefits towards whatever we're looking at from a community for expected end products? So I think those three questions are what we need to kind of talk about before we get into opinions on whether we think we should or shouldn't do things in homeschooling. So any thoughts on that before we kind of move on?
Nope.
Okay, that's all I had.
All right, discussion items, moving on to draft revised policy number 2401, board review of administrative guidelines.
We'll get to that. Okay, so this one we really hadn't been on our radar, but as we were meeting with Nick and Julie Slavens, we started looking at, talking about, guidelines and whether that should be, I guess, part of the policy or whatever. And we actually have that as a policy for the board to review. I guess the concern was if we had language in a guideline, the board doesn't approve those things. But actually we have a policy that at the board's discretion at any time, that the board feels that administratively we aren't carrying out the board policy within our guidelines or administrative actions, the board can say, hey, I want to look at the administrative guidelines for that policy and either, veto the guidelines and say we want you to rewrite it, or give suggestions on rewriting it. So anyway, I just thought we needed to go back and look at that. So we did some revisions to that policy. Any questions or thoughts on that? Nick, I don't know if you want to come up to the podium too, or.
I think we had a good discussion, meeting with Julie. Kathy was involved in that, Tracy were involved, but discussing some of those changes. And Mike hit it with, if the board's gonna adopt policies, then the administration's gonna implement these administrative guidelines. But if you as a board wanna review those and use your discretion to address, if you think things are not being addressed or implemented, followed through, you could do that. And so that's why we looked at this policy with addressing the administrative guidelines.
And then these changes are what Julie had recommended?
Yep.
Yeah. Any questions on this?
Any questions from the board? Are there any members of the public that wish to discuss this policy? All right. Is it the will of the board to move this to an agenda item for decision? Next.
Yes, I
Okay.
would.
Okay.
Make a motion to move it.
Yeah, do we have to?
I don't think we need to do that,
I think
yeah.
we just-
So as long as we're good with it to move to an action item, we can do that.
Okay.
All right, next is 3012 hiring requirements.
I'll make this bigger here so we can read it. So again, and I appreciate kind of how this process has gone personally, because originally we were talking about, just the rehiring of people that had been former employees. And so then we went into, the last we had left it was, well, can we look at an old policy and see if we can fit it in? And so we had looked at, what was it, reference checks or something like that. And so then as we were talking, then it got to, well, why don't we just encompass that into all hiring practice? And so I really like how it turned out. So we sent this to Julie to kind of peruse, and she just had a couple of changes there, like changing employees to candidates, and then previously it just been terminated from there. But yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add, Nick or Tracy?
No, I think this is kind of a hybrid of what we had, and we discussed the last meeting when we talked about policies with the hiring procedure and what candidates or what employees we would look at within this policy that it applied to. And so we tried to talk through with our meeting the best language and just these final tweaks to the kind of a hybrid policy with addressing everything.
Yeah, that was my thought when we were kind of talking about and got some of the first drafts. It was very specific to a specific hiring practice, and I said, well, is there a hiring policy that this should sit on, and recognizing that we really didn't have just an overall hiring policy. And so that was kind of why I thought and suggested that maybe we just have an actual hiring policy, and what is the process that we as a board, expect to see. And so I thought it turned out pretty well. Is there any questions or discussion from the board? And I know, Corey, this obviously was one that you kind of initiated, so is it kind of in the guidelines, or in the kind of where you wanted it to?
Yeah, I think because it will probably be more addressed in the guidelines portion, so I think this covers it. And then I just want to make sure, and I think I do, when applicable, one reference can be from the most recent, employer or supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that language is in there is in case someone doesn't want, they're still would stay employed if they don't get that job, I'm assuming, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah, I think it captures the essence of it.
And just so you know, and there, like, one thing that we would do in the guidelines, or in that, well, paragraph that I'm on here, where it talks about hiring administrators to ensure that the reference checks are completed and properly documented. that's where we would go into detail on how we're gonna make sure they're documented. And really, it's gonna be in Frontline Central, but,
Yeah.
And Courtney was involved
Yeah.
in the meeting as well, and I think the follow through on her end is with a lot of the administrative guidelines and that detail that Mike just referenced.
Are there any members of the public that wish to speak in regards to this? Okay. Is it the will of the board to move this to an action item? Okay. Moving on to policy 3013, employee exit interviews.
This too, I thought, we went through a couple of revisions on this, so in bold is kind of where we landed on. And I like this too, because what we gathered from the spirit of the board is that just want to make sure that regardless of whether Courtney's in the position or me or whoever, that this is a policy and expectation that we will do exit interviews when employees leave. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. And so that was good. And so yeah, I just think this is pretty clean. Again, there'll be some things that maybe we'll put in administrative guidelines for us just to take it to a, more explicit level in terms of what we have to do. But I thought this was pretty good in encapsulating everything that the board was wanting.
Any discussion on the board? No, that good. My only was the periodically piece, if there was any specific, if we wanted it following each semester, and rather than just periodically.
Yeah, and honestly, Julie kind of doubled down on that word because she was given an opportunity to change that, and she stuck with it. I guess the only thing that I would say, again, going back to guidelines, because if we would then write that and say we're going to do this every quarter or something like that, the only reason is if we're doing it quarterly and then the board says, I don't know that we need to have these quarterly. That's maybe, we thought we did, maybe that's too often, let's do it per semester or something. Then we don't have to go back and rewrite the policy. So I think that's the reason for it to be vague as periodically. Honestly, for me, it doesn't necessarily matter. We don't mind doing it quarterly, so it doesn't make any difference to us. But I think from a policy writing standpoint, periodically probably makes more sense, which is probably why Julie leaned that way
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And you may not have the numbers for data to quantify doing it quarterly even, but I mean, that.
Right, yeah, and I don't think quarterly would make sense. I think more following each semester, as that tends to be where we see
Yeah,
enough transition.
doing it twice a year, beginning or end of the school year.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I think as long as it's up at the administrative piece, that's kind of the intention, or at least you guys understand that's the
Yeah,
intention.
sure. Yeah, because I think doing it at the end of the year is too late. I mean, I think if we can have it, by semester, it makes more sense from the board getting feedback, so.
Any other questions? Any questions of the community? Is it the will of the board to move this to an agenda action item? Yes. All right, moving on to action items, personnel report.
You want to go ahead and just do those now? In the actions, because you're not meeting for
Next.
this meeting?
Correct.
Okay, I thought you meant this meeting.
So essentially,
Okay,
for
gotcha.
the next agenda to move
Yep,
it to an action
okay.
item. Yeah. That we're done discussing. Ready to act.
Gotcha.
Thanks.
Okay, resignations, we have Kaylee Leary, 7th grade English teacher at the middle school, effective at the end of the year. Elizabeth Murda, assistant boys golf coach at the high school. Andrew Glancy, substitute bus driver for the school. John Cox, teaching assistant at Ossian. Terminations, there is a correction on this effective date. I just now noticed it as I was sitting there. It's not at the end of the year. It should be dated the 2/25, so I apologize for that. I do see that that's an error on here. Douglas Engel, substitute bus driver for the corporation. Recommendations, Elizabeth Murda, assistant girls tennis coach for the high school. Kelly Cady, assistant track coach for the middle school. Zachariah Murda, boys head golf coach, high school. Ainsley Melcher, substitute teacher for the corporation. Bailey Sliger, substitute teacher for the corporation. Don Dale, assistant track coach, high school. Jim Bird, volunteer assistant wrestling coach, and Shane Newsenswander, volunteer assistant baseball coach.
Questions? I know there was a question from Kathy in regards to the termination.
Correct, and I think it was because when Amy put in his last physical working day, and I know she had been in contact with him numerous times to see if he was gonna continue to be a sub for us, and then he had some things last that we need him to have for being a bus driver, so we have to go ahead and move for a termination for that,
Okay.
to keep him active for us.
I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions? All right, those in favor, right hand. Those abstaining. All right, moving on to donations.
All right, so we have a Donwood Foundation fund of $5,000 for supplies and equipment for health science and child development courses.
Make a motion to approve. Thank you very much.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor, right hand. All right, moving on to overnight and out-of-state trips that mostly already happened.
Mostly. The high school cheer, BCA cheer camp at Great Wolf Lodge in Mason, Ohio. That's July 28th through 23rd, 2026. High school varsity baseball, Bloomington Invitational, April 3rd through 4th, 2026. High school girls swim state tournament, Indianapolis, yes, already happened, February 13th through the 14th. And then high school girls basketball LaPorte semi-state tournament, 20th and 21st, also already happened. So just ask for approval.
I just changed out the state.
Should, I mean, I guess it's not on the agenda, but should we just go ahead and approve for the out-of-state for this weekend too?
Right, we probably should have. So when the agenda was made, we didn't know that.
I mean,
yet,
I'm
so-
good with them going this
I would
weekend.
put it on there.
Yeah, we should have, yeah. So I guess that would have been the addition, so I don't know if you want to do a motion to add that, but yeah, we should add that.
Yeah,
It's
so
happening.
we'll start with a motion to add the out-of-state for this weekend.
I'll make a motion to add the Indy trip.
Have a motion and a second. Any, all those in favor, right hand, and then we'll add that as an
They're gonna
agenda.
go anyway.
They're going.
You can say no.
All right, any question, or I guess we need a motion for these.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions? All right, all in favor, right hand. All right, American Medical Staffing Agreement.
I'll have Mindy get up. We've done this before, we've just changed who's doing it and the frequency, so if you just explain that quickly, the changes.
Yes, so last board meeting, I stood here and you guys approved another candidate that we had, and we just decided to go in a different direction. And so this candidate is actually working for the same company that our part-time school psychologist is working. So it's exactly the same, that she will be working 3 days in person and 2 days remotely. So we passed on the other one and we're moving forward with this one if you guys approve.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions? Any questions of the public? Hearing none. All those in favor, right hand. All right. High school and middle school device replacement for your lease.
Yeah, it's a big number, but, so, I'm gonna have, Myron come forward, and he also has a device, that he's holding, just to show you guys that it is a sturdier device, than what we had before. It's better quality, it's a Lenovo. Do you wanna talk a little bit, Byron, about some differences, and then just kind of the whole lease process, maybe?
So, working with Secure Tech Solutions out of Indy this time. They work with a lot of Indiana schools on this type of stuff. Talked to Adams Central, talked to Belmont, talked to Daleville, I think is what it was, down by Indy. All great references for the corporation. Through them, we got Lenovo's, that was their recommendation. I know lots of schools have those, lots of good recommendations there as well. This is a 500W. It's a usable case. I don't know if you ever used any of the other ones. This one folds around nicely as opposed to the other ones that did not fold around so nicely. A little more horsepower, more memory, better processor, to try to help the slowness in the other ones going well. We went with an ADP plan through Secure Tech instead of through the vendor, for the reason of working with OEM ADP is difficult.
And that's
to get.
accident accidental damage.
Oh, yeah, sorry, accidental damage protection is ADP. Trying to get big vendors to answer to small people like us in the world that they're living in, we found very difficult to get much response out of. So their ADP is backed up by an insurance company, so it's really insured stuff, but that's the way we went this time. And then we went with a lease this time to try to make sure we were covered long-term and then to spread it out so you're not seeing that big lump payment right at the beginning. They also offer some services with their leasing of inventory management, some other stuff through the lease.
And those hinges are just.
If you want to touch
much
them
better.
and feel it,
Who would, especially with the future discussion we're about to have about K through and one-to-one devices, would that number go down with this? Maybe not.
No.
They use
Devices?
iPads.
sorry, ask that again?
Oh, that they only have iPads?
Yes.
Okay, never mind.
And these don't, so I guess, and kind of piggyback onto Corey's question, that this agreement doesn't indicate a number of devices.
815. It's in a different quote that so the quote goes to, yeah, it's a roundabout situation with the lease, but yes.
Yeah, it's for 815.
Okay.
So that gives us a few spares, and also if we have kids move in and over that time.
So trying to adjust for whatever your enrollment's gonna be over increase, decrease, make sure we have enough every year for the next 4.
So you'll get tablets for the young kids through this?
Yeah.
Or you'll
That's being discussed,
Yeah, that'll be
yeah.
a whole different order, that's not through
That's
this at
not
all.
that part of this.
Correct. And the other part was that we did was, we talked about maybe the white glove.
Yeah, so whenever we get new devices, it's always a big summer for us. Angie Smith's in the back room and she's starting to laugh because she used to always do this with us. Unboxing devices and then taking all the wrappers off of everything, and then you take the cases apart and you take all the little clear stuff off of those, and then you have to put them all in the cases, and Angie used to come to me and say, my thumb's hurt, I gotta take 2 days off because I can't put another one in. And it's reality, and it's a lot of just
You get the
manual
asset-
labor
asset
process.
tags and then making
You
sure.
gotta
it's set
asset
up.
tag everything, you gotta make sure it's all lined up so you can put it in. It's just a
So we
lot
looked
of.
at the employee, what we're paying for this and the employee cost. I mean, this is basically a wash, and they get it done and it's ready for us.
Yes.
Oh, so they're like that when they.
They're gonna be in a case with our asset tags, and we get a Excel spreadsheet that has all the inventory in it, and it saves hours and hours of work.
Sounds like it makes your job easier.
That's the goal.
I don't like it already.
Yeah, I know. I was questioning that too.
And my understanding from the lease agreement is that at the end of our lease, the devices go back to them.
They can, there's 3 points, they can purchase them, we
Yeah.
return them with no obligation, or we continue leasing them.
Right, the end of term options are
Yeah.
purchase the equipment for fair market value, return the equipment with no further obligation, or continue the leasing of the equipment. And just kind of looking at the terms of the lease, you know, it's $1,228 per device. I don't know what it is to purchase them. And I know we asked you to split it out. I feel like we're purchasing them and giving them back.
So I will tell you that at the end of the 4 years with these devices,
I know we don't want them, but
there's not a whole lot of value in them either.
So if we're established with them, like, I'm thinking car dealership mentality, like, at the end of the lease, then is there any?
There's options then at the
benefits
end.
To get new ones? with-
Yeah, I mean,
as
there's all
existing
kinds of options at the end where you can roll you that into something else, into another one.
Yes, I mean, even if you purchased it outright, you're still at the end of it, you're gonna have devices that are, like somebody can give you $50 for or something, I mean.
You're
it's-
not gonna get $50 after 4 years.
Well,
Well, we're recommending it for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
okay, I have a motion and a second for approval. Any questions of the board? Are there any questions or comments from the public?
Do we get these next year?
Please state your name.
Adam.
Adam, your address.
Jessica Bender.
Thank you.
Do the kids get these devices next year?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
If you want, I can let your kids have the other ones for another year.
No, I'm good. I'm thrilled to get rid of the ones we have this year.
All right, if there are no additional questions, I have a motion for approval. All those in favor, right hand. All right.
I need some hand sanitizer.
The next is a recommendation to remove the 2020 Guinness Book of World Records Gamers Edition for elementary school libraries.
Yeah, and I invited Angie to come. I just want, before Angie kind of goes through the process, I want to just again thank Angie. She's a school rep for this. And then Julie Rupp was unable to be here.
Diving.
Diving.
Mhm.
She's not diving.
No.
But, so Julie leads it with the parent group, but I kind of going back to what I said about TAG, like I don't want us to take for granted, like some of these things that we have in place. We started this, this part of our strategic planning in 2023 around there that we kind of got this going. And this committee just operates seamlessly. And I think it's a really good, I think, trust for our parents to have that if they come across a book or their kids come across a book and they're just like, I don't think that's appropriate. We have just a seamless process for it to be evaluated and then by objective parents that are part of this committee to say, yeah, I don't think this is appropriate for elementary, or I think it is, and here's why. And it's just a really good group of people and a good process that we have. And like, we're not involved in it like at all, other than a parent bringing it to an administrator and saying, hey, I've got a question about this. The principal reaches out to Angie and Angie gets the ball rolling. And it's just a great process. And I just appreciate you, Angie, how you help with the leadership of it. So I'll let you talk now.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that Mr. Springer asked me to do, is just kind of go through the process to explain what it looks like if a book is, challenged, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
So if a book is challenged, whether it be a classroom book, which we've had before, or it's a library book, which is more often the case, then the principal will contact me, and I will immediately let the librarians know, if the principal hasn't already, to go ahead and just pull that book for the time being until we have a chance to review it. And then we, as a committee, I'll reach out to Julie Rupp, who is our parent chairperson, who then will contact the rest of the committee, and we'll convene. So we usually have a copy or multiple copies of the book. And as you can see on the smart board over there, we have a rubric that we use that we developed in 2023 that has us kind of look at different criteria, which has really helped us kind of stay focused. And so the things that are on that rubric ask us to think about, how this helps with our curriculum, how does it address state standards, how does it, is it, great literary quality, things like that. So we look at all the different kinds of qualities that we would hope to see in a book, and we try to weigh, what does this book look like in regards to that rubric. And so you can see like a 1 is the lowest. Well, the book that we were looking at this most recently was a Guinness Book of World Records Gamers Edition. So literary quality is probably not something that we were really looking at that point. But there is an engaging piece, because not all books have to be super high quality. We do want the kids to be reading for fun and enjoyment as well. And so we know that, and that's taken into consideration on there as well. And then we just have good conversations. So we all kind of bring different experiences to the table. We all have different ages of children. And so we really have good conversations. And I will say, I really want to thank my committee. We have anywhere from 6 to 8 people that usually join us in these kinds of meetings, depending on who's available. And they take that responsibility very seriously. They don't, immediately jump to let's just pull it, or they really have good, thoughtful conversations. For this particular book, the first thing we noticed was it's 2020 and it's a Guinness Book of World Records book. So the timeliness of that seemed a little odd, it's 6 years old. So even the records that are in there would not be probably, and even the games, because it was Gamer Edition, those games aren't going to be relevant for the most part 6 years later anyway, because we know how quickly those turn around. So it was one of the first things we noticed was, wow, I'm not even sure this is very relevant anymore. And so we kind of put that in the back of our minds, and then we worked through the rubric. Obviously, this one we did together. A lot of times we'll do it separately, but we had a limited number of books, so we just did it together. It was an easy one to do. And then we started, thinking about what were the parent concerns. And one of the things that we had conversations about was that the book was geared for ages 8 to 12, but a lot of the games that were mentioned in there were listed as teen, rated as teen. And so we were like, well, if we're putting it on an elementary bookshelf and the majority of the games that are like recommended or reviewed or highlighted in this book aren't even rated for that age group, that doesn't really seem, that makes a whole lot of sense. And so we had that conversation, and then we said, okay, let's weigh the literary qualities, and we were like, okay, well. And so we decided that it was just geared more towards our middle school or high school audience. And so then we'll reach out to the middle school, high school media specialists, librarians, and say, do you already have this copy? Do you want another copy? If so, we can give you this copy. If you think it's kind of outdated, that's fine. We'll just weed it. We'll just weed it from the elementary library. Lancaster had a copy, Ossian did not. So when I reached out to Ossian, so as soon as the decision is made, that's a decision made for both elementaries. So then I'll reach out to the elementaries and say, hey, this was the decision, and we move on that. And then obviously waiting for your approval before it's a complete done deal. But since the committee has said that, we just went ahead and pulled it off for the time being until your approval.
Anybody have questions? My only question, I guess, is it a necessary process to go through this if the book's outdated? It probably needs to be removed anyway?
Yeah, so it was kind of like initially when we did it, we felt like, well, we'll go ahead and review it. It also helps us to know whether a new version comes out, if that's something we need to look at closely. So it's a every year thing because it's a Guinness Book of World Records. So in this case, it did us a favor for us to go through that process and look at what's actually in there, so that before we put on a 2026 Guinness Book of World Records on the shelf, we can say, okay, let's consider those same things. Is it geared for the audience that it says it's geared for?
And I guess for the board's benefit too, like how often do media specialists go through or librarians go through the weeding process?
So we weed continually. Usually the big process happens at the end of the school year, but it can happen throughout. So you'll have some books that are not in good shape, and then you have to make a decision, do we replace it, or what's the checkout like on this? Is it getting checked out frequently? If not, let's just go ahead and weed it. So we do a whole, we weed at the end of the year. A lot of technology books that are outdated. This kind of fell into that category as well, so.
So it may have happened through the weeding process.
It may have anyway, yeah.
But I do think it was good, and I think it's good for the board to still take action on it, because I think it's a good message and just heightens our antenna that, this really probably shouldn't have been in the elementary library anyway,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I guess I get that. Again, I guess my question is from a process perspective. It's okay for the other schools. Why don't we just put it in the other schools again versus banning it from something that would have been removed from a shelf because of its one timeliness, and two, maybe it doesn't make sense, and just move it to the school?
Yeah, that's what we had originally said. We were gonna leave that then up to the middle school, high school librarian to decide if it was something that they even, if they had that particular year. Sometimes those, depending on the games or the content that's in there, it might still be relevant. And so it just kind of depends on, and they can look at their checkouts to know whether or not it's something that, if they have the copy is worth, taking on another copy. So that's, yeah. So we just said, we didn't, and the other reason why we said it was, it's not like we felt like it was inappropriate for all audiences. And so we wanted to make that clear as well. Like, it's not like it's inappropriate for everyone. It was really kind of too old for the crowd that it was, given to, so.
Yeah, I guess I just don't understand banning a book that should have been removed from the shelf because it's irrelevant.
Yeah, I think it's just a process. It probably got missed in the weeding process. And plus, I think it was probably, so when we looked at the book, we felt like, okay, we can see why the young kids are interested in it. It's got like Pikachu on the front, and it's got some gaming. And so I think kids don't pay attention to the dates, especially elementary kids. And so they're just gonna pick it up and notice that there's Pikachu, right? And they're gonna, oh, Mario, and they go and start opening it and, looking through the pictures. And so there was just some stuff that we felt that wasn't really age appropriate for that. And we figured they would just be looking simply at the games, the names and the pictures, and we felt like now they're gonna go home and ask their parents, can I have this game? And it's rated teen, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think too, that it's important, the term kind of matters too, because it's reconsideration. So it's not so much, because it kind of feels like we're not necessarily banning books.
Right.
We're just reconsidering whether this is appropriate at Norwell to have in our elementary libraries, right? And so I think that's a piece to it. And then I think the other thing we talked about way back in 2023 is, do we involve the board in this process, or do we just take it out? The reason we decided to, I think, is so that, especially for and we can send it to the parent, let them know that it happened, but I think it's good for our parents to know, right, that we are going through this process, that we're diligent about it, and then actually in a public board meeting say, we're not gonna have this book in the library. Like, I just think all that is good transparency and communication, so.
Yeah.
and it doesn't happen, like, I think in the last 3 years, we've had maybe one book each year.
Right.
So it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I think the last time we did this was, I don't.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been.
Yeah,
it's
and
been
we're
a while.
being-
And that's why I'm questioning is like, I understood the
Yeah.
other book, right? It
Right.
didn't have like a timeliness to it.
Right.
Where this book is, you could just remove it because it's
Right.
old.
Yep.
And it has a year and date, and there's replacements, and you can choose not to replace
Right.
it. And that's
And
why I
that's the
think this
conversation
is
that we-
different, and that's why I guess, that's where I struggle to like, should this just be removed through that process instead of a board removal process like what we
Yeah.
have done in the
Yeah.
past?
Well, I think too, I mean, just, because kids might still, even though we think like the records might be outdated, they still might be interested in it.
Yeah.
Right, but you still pull books because of their
Timeliness.
out
Well, we do-
timeliness and
some, we
outdated.
also, we also remove them because kids aren't checking them out.
Right.
Right, I mean, that's a big one too.
And I think it possibly could have been on the weeding list in the spring. But because it came up as a book that a parent was concerned about, then that just automatically triggered the process. Because we wanted to make sure we did due diligence. So since it was on the shelf.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it coming
Yeah.
off the shelf.
Yeah, right.
I'm just,
Yeah, no, that's a
I
great
just
question.
want to, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that we're, like, should it go through a different process to be removed instead of this process, which tends to be a little bit more controversial of the books that are getting moved.
True. Mhm. I would agree with you.
So if there's a motion of the board,
The only thing I would say is, can we actually see what the book, I mean, we get a review, but we never see the book.
Yeah.
We get to look at
Yeah,
it.
you
Sure.
sometimes do, it was,
That would be
Yeah.
beneficial. Right.
Sure.
I would-
Like a copy of it in your hands? Sure.
Yeah, just go through it real quick.
Yeah.
See what we're looking at.
Sure.
So you want to push it, or you want to vote?
I'd rather see the book, personally. I'm not saying I want to vote for it, because it is 18 plus in there, rated games, so.
so there's 3 motion options. One is to table it. 2 is to not remove it, and 3 is to remove it.
So we just table it, till we see the book.
Okay, if that's your motion.
That's my motion.
That's fine with me, I'll second it.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Are there any questions of the board? Are there any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor? All right, and I'm going to oppose. Thanks. All right, moving on to upcoming calendar. Actually, before that, limited public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to get up and address the board prior to the end of the meeting? All right, moving on to upcoming calendar events.
yeah, so we do have our upcoming coffee conversations with me, and so I'm looking forward to that. We have one on the 5th, and then we have one on the 12th and the 19th. I'm not sure why we didn't have the 19th on there for ASEAN. So anyway, on those, one of the changes I think we're going to make, actually Jeremiah talked about this last night at the Chamber annual dinner, So I think I'm gonna make sure I put this out to people that, because there may be some that could do a 7 o'clock, but then 9 doesn't work, or maybe vice versa. And so even though it's at the middle school, high school, if you're a parent from Ossian, or you're a parent from Lancaster, and the 5th works for you, and you can come at, 7:15 or whatever at the middle school, come to that one, right? So I think I'm gonna put that out to give people that information. So that's the 5th, 12th, and 19th, and then the 10th is our next board meeting. And of course, we got a game to go to this weekend, so.
Some other things.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, another thing's going too. Yeah.
first off, congratulations to our girls, and good luck to our girls this weekend, and congratulations to Coach Thornton for his 500th win. And hopefully we'll be congratulating them for his 501st at one of our future board meetings. Any other business of the board?
Make a motion to adjourn.